Oh, this again.
Everyone, you may be seated.
All right, what do we got? More video?
Yes, Your Honor, with these next two witnesses, it'll be short video. It's just going to be segments of some of the videos that have already been introduced.
Okay. All right, I'll have to reposition you guys too, I guess.
Have we approached all the juries that we have?
Yeah.
Jurors are in the courtroom, Your Honor.
Thank you.
You may be seated. All the jurors are present and accounted for, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for returning. Were you all able to abide by my instructions during the recess? All right, we're going to get started again. Looks like the board's out again, so state if you want to reposition. I'm going to reposition you as your next witness.
The defense would call upon Michelle Simpson.
The screen. Turn to face the clerk and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in this call will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Have a seat right here.
Good afternoon, Ms. Simpson.
Hi,
Please state your full name for the record.
Dawn Michelle Simpson.
Ms. Simpson, would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you're employed?
Currently, I'm retired from banking.
Okay, and back in January of 2014, specifically January 13 of 2014, can you tell the jury how you were employed there?
I was in banking at the time. I was a teller supervisor.
Okay, and how long had you been in that particular industry?
A total of 27 years.
Okay. I am going to direct your attention to that day, January the 13th of 2014, and ask you if you had an occasion that afternoon to go and visit the Cobb Theater.
I'm sorry, you...
Did you go to the Cobb Theater
Yes.
that day?
Yes.
Okay. I know you're a little nervous, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to relax.
Okay.
Nothing to be nervous about. I'm just going to be asking you some questions, okay? You had an occasion to go on January the 13th to the Cobb Theater.
Yes.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury why it was that you were at the Cobb Theater that afternoon?
Well, I had taken a personal day from work, and my daughter was looking for movie posters for her room, and that's why I went to the theater, just to ask for movie posters.
So you had gone to the movie theater in order to try to retrieve some posters for your daughter's room?
Yes.
Okay. I am going to show you an exhibit that is exhibit number 1, introduced into evidence in this case. And I'm going to ask you to step down if the court will permit me.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me move to.
You're probably good right there. We'll be able to see on this big screen. I don't think you need to get any closer right now. I'm going to show you a portion of exhibit number 1 that's been introduced into evidence. Go ahead. You stop it there, right there. Ms. Simpson, do you recognize the individual that is there at the counter of the Cobb Theater?
Myself, and I believe that's the manager.
This is you here?
Yes.
Okay, and this is the manager that you had approached that afternoon?
Yes.
Okay. Continue, Matt. Stop it right there, Matt. Do you recognize the individual that just walked up to the counter?
Mr. Reeves.
And do you recognize Mr. Reeves here in the courtroom? Can you please point out to Mr. Reeves here in the courtroom? And can you tell us what he's wearing?
A gray jacket and burgundy tie.
Okay. Your Honor, let the record reflect that she is identified Mr. Reeves. And so, when Mr. Reeves first walked up to the counter, did you notice anything about him that would have given you an indication that he was angry or mad or anything of that sort?
No.
And so you continued to talk to the manager concerning your request?
Yes.
Matt, would you continue? Okay, stop there, Matt. Now, while you were speaking to the manager there, could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury of what you noticed of Mr. Reeves at that point in time?
Well, I just noticed that he was off to my left. He was not behind me, he was to the side of me, a few feet away from me.
Did he interrupt in any way, shape, or form what you were discussing with the management?
No.
Did he appear to be patient and courteous in this whole process?
Yes.
Go ahead, Matt. Can we stop there for a second? Now, you moved over to one side of the counter, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you were doing when you moved over to one side of the counter?
I was going to make out a list of the posters that my daughter was looking for to leave with the manager.
Okay. And even though you were doing that, were you in earshot of the conversation that Mr. Reeves was having with management there?
Yes.
And were you able to witness Mr. Reeves' disposition as he was having that conversation there with the manager?
Yes.
Okay. And could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury whether you noticed anything that gave you any indication that Mr. Reeves was upset or mad or anything of that sort?
I didn't observe that, no.
And did you observe him being courteous and pleasant while he was discussing the matter with the management?
What I observed, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Matt. Stop there. In that segment of the video, it appears you look over towards Mr. Reeves, correct?
Mm-hmm.
To make your observations of what he was doing and how he was doing it. Is that correct?
Objection, ED.
Sustained.
Is it true or not that you looked over there to make your observations? Is it true or not?
Yes.
It is. Go ahead. Stop there, man. It appears that you continued after Mr. Reeves left the counter. Is it true that you continued talking to management?
I don't recall if I said anything else to management.
Did you get the posters that you wanted?
No.
Okay.
They
Can you
didn't
tell the
have
ladies and gentlemen of the jury why not?
them. They didn't have them.
Okay. And so what did you do at that point in time?
I decided to just leave, and I was going to come back at another time and see if they had more posters.
You may take your seat, Matt. You can. Now, you left that day, and where did you go?
I went home.
Okay, and on your way home, did you see any law enforcement cruisers?
Yes.
Okay, and when you got home, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you did.
When I got home, I turned on the TV, which is not abnormal. I do that when I get home. And breaking news was just going off the television. I had seen enough to know what was going on, that I was just there. So I got on my computer.
To find out what was going on
happened.
in the Cobb
Yeah.
Theater? Okay. And did you obviously realize that you were just there?
Yes.
Okay. And so what did you do? Did you call law enforcement that day from your home?
I did, but I had called my mom first.
Okay. And what, without telling me what your mom told you, did whatever conversation you had with your mom result in you calling law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. And did law enforcement contact you back?
Not that day, no.
Okay. Did they contact you back, period?
A detective did,
Okay.
Yes.
And was that in person or was that telephonically?
telephonically.
Okay. And so a detective contacts you telephonically, and was that, did you have an interview with that detective?
Just over the phone.
Okay. And did you tell the detective what you told the ladies and gentlemen of the jury here today?
Yes.
Was that interview between yourself and the detective quite short?
Yes, it was short.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar or Mr. Funderburk, could you turn that off when it's not in use?
It has to reboot, that's part of the problem, and can you turn the screen?
No.
Okay, just the
Okay.
screen, thank you. Okay, Cross?
Yes, ma'am. May it please the court, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Mrs. Simpson, good afternoon, ma'am. Mrs. Simpson, you would agree with me that when you were standing at the service desk and you indicated you saw Mr. Reeves walk up, correct?
Yes.
Did he exhibit any signs of urgency?
No.
And what I mean by that, you were standing there, did he tell Mr. Peck, excuse me, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I have an urgent matter that I need to discuss with you?
He didn't say that, no,
Okay.
those words.
In fact, did you ever hear Mr. Reeves indicate to Mr. Peck that there was an individual in the theater cursing at him?
I didn't hear that.
Did you hear him say that he had been threatened?
I didn't hear that either.
Did you hear him say that there's imminent violence, that he needed him to come into the theater right away?
No.
He didn't say any of those things, did he?
No. Not in those words.
In fact, he never told Mr. Peck that, quote unquote, he was scared shitless.
I didn't hear those words, no.
Okay. May I have a moment, Judge?
You may.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Just
Ready to roll? Yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Simpson, was Mr. Reeves speaking softly, normally, there at the counter?
A normal voice that I heard, no.
He certainly wasn't speaking like this.
No.
I have no questions.
May this witness be released?
Yes, Judge.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, ma'am, you're free to go. Who's next?
Your Honor, the defense would call Thomas Peck.
Okay. He's not talking, it's okay.
Okay.
I have to get my shoes resoled.
Okay.
you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in this call to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, truth to help you God?
I do.
I feel like this was a rerun, huh? Good afternoon, Mr. Peck.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Peck, would you please state your full name for the record?
Thomas James Peck, Jr.
In an effort to get to know you a little better, would you tell us about your educational background?
I attended the Culinary Institute of America, graduated as a chef, and it's basic.
Okay. In 2013, were you employed at the Cobb Theater?
Yes, I was.
And specifically on January the 13th of 2014, could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what position you held there at the Cobb Theater?
I was the general manager.
Okay. And would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that means as a general manager? How many people do you have under you, and in what capacities?
I have about 9 managers under me and about 80 or so employees
Okay. And that Cobb Theater was located where?
in Wesley Chapel.
Okay. Now, there at that particular theater, you have different offices, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you also have a section that's called the Cena Bistro, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And was the Cena Bistro opened on the time slot of this particular incident?
No, it was not.
And it's my understanding that in an effort to get into the Cena Bistro area, do you have to go through an elevator?
Yes, elevator or stairs.
Okay. And that is a separate location that is only for Cena Bistro patrons?
Correct.
So in other words, if you're in the general seating, you just can't go up there just because you want to?
Correct.
Okay. It's only for those guests that have paid for that particular service?
Yes.
And at this time, you're saying, the day of the time of this incident, it was non-operational?
It was not operational, no.
Okay. Now, tell me a little bit about the Cena Bistro. How many theaters do you all have there?
6.
Okay. And how many rooms would you say you have in the entire complex?
16.
16. Okay.
Auditoriums?
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
16, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in addition to that, you have some offices that, your office, is that correct?
Correct.
And where is that office located?
It would be, as you're coming into the building, be to the left-hand side, down by past theaters 1 through 9.
Okay. And do you have some offices upstairs as well?
Yes.
Again, what offices are upstairs?
The manager's office, projection IT tech office, server room, and yeah, that's it for offices up there.
And at the time of this particular incident, you had a surveillance system in place in various parts of the complex, is that correct?
That's correct.
And one of those particular areas was Theater 10, is that correct?
That's correct.
And did those cameras capture the entire general population area of Theater 10?
No,
It covered just a very small, limited portion, is that correct?
that is correct.
Those cameras were positioned where in that theater?
They were positioned in the upstairs balcony for the Cine Bistro side.
Okay, was that pretty high up in the wall, like 30, 35 feet up?
I would be guessing, but yes, I mean, it could be
Okay.
there.
Okay. Now, you had some capabilities of being able to see that particular surveillance system from various parts of that theater, is that correct?
Yes.
And would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury all of the different areas that you could have actually accessed that surveillance system to be able to view it?
One access area would be the general manager's office.
And where would that be at?
That'd be down by theaters 1 through 9, down that side, downstairs.
Okay,
And then one would be the IT projection booth,
okay.
or
And
office.
that IT projection office was located where?
Upstairs, past the Cine Bistro theaters, to the right, I would assume.
Okay. And what is housed in that IT room?
In that particular room, there's DVRs, the text PC, and chair office equipment and stuff like that, and other wiring and stuff for the projectors.
So all of the DVRs for that surveillance system would be up there in that IT room?
Yes,
Okay. And you've indicated, I think, that you could see that surveillance from that room as well?
yes, you can.
Okay. Do you all use that capability, the capability of being able to, either from your office or from the IT room, to view surveillance that is taking place throughout the complex?
Yes.
And would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury some of the reasons that you go on to the surveillance system to see what's going on?
Yes, we would look at it for instance, if somebody had their phone out or something for recording, if somebody was, if there was a situation we need to assess, if somebody was taking something from our concession stand, monitoring our POS systems, point of sale systems for our own staff to make sure monies are being counted right and also change are being counted right. And just if we have any other incidents, we have to look up, like, again, somebody in a theater that doesn't belong in a theater or something along that line.
Okay. And so, did you use that capability of your surveillance system to view often?
Yes, yes,
Okay, and so you were familiar with the operation of it, correct?
yes, yeah, the basic viewing operation, yes.
Your other managers were also knowledgeable about operating the system?
Yeah, somewhat.
Okay. And even some of your non-managers were experienced in viewing the system, correct?
Yes.
Now, in viewing that system, are you able to actually see the time stamps of when things are happening?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And so you're able to actually look at the surveillance system and then know when those things that you're viewing are taking place?
Based on the timestamps, knowing that timestamp, yes.
Okay. Now, I would imagine in the past, when you've had instances, and correct me if I'm wrong or right, if you needed to have a police officer view video for something that may have occurred in a theater, you've provided that access to law enforcement, correct?
Yes, we wouldn't refuse it, yes. I mean, yes.
That's, you, at times, at that theater, have law enforcement present there, do you not?
Yes, we did.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury when you have law enforcement present and when you don't?
At that time, we had law enforcement present on weekends, like Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
So just Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays?
That's correct.
Okay. And certainly they would have had access, like you would have access to that room upstairs, the IT room, as well as your office, if they needed to view video?
Yes, they requested it, absolutely.
What about corporate, Cobb Theater corporate? Did they have access in a way to likewise view remotely what was taking place at each of the camera areas of the Cobb Theater?
Yes, they could dial in.
And what does that mean, just so that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are clear on what that means, dial in?
They could dial in remotely through like computer-to-computer talking. I couldn't tell you the technical terms, but they could dial in where they can pull up the computer, take the computer per se, and we would recognize that because the background screen would turn black from blue, and then we'd know they were watching it. So.
Okay. And would corporate do that from time to time?
Yes, and from time to time they would, yes.
But not real often?
No.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that particular day, and I want to talk to you a little bit about lighting conditions there at the theater, if I can.
Okay.
There's a segment, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a segment where commercials are played in the theaters, is that correct?
Yes, there was.
Okay, and what are those called?
30 minutes prior to trailers, we have NCM, which was National Senior Media, and over time it's changed names, but it's NCM at the time, and they basically just show advertisements. Local companies can buy advertisement space and just show commercials, and once in a while you have a little quick movie push put in there too. But
now during that segment of the experience, what are the lighting? What's the setting of the lightings during that experience, the commercial experience?
we would call that level 1 full house lighting.
Level 1 full house lighting?
Yeah.
Okay. And then after these commercials are concluded, what comes on next?
You'll get a couple PSAs, public service announcements, and then it'll go into the trailers.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those public announcements. Is there an announcement that comes on that is telling the audience to turn off their phones and put their phones away?
Yes, there's one about being courteous, having your phone off.
And why is it that the Cobb Theater has that particular announcement go out prior to the previews?
Just to be courteous to the guests, to other guests who are, when they're watching movies, there's nobody on their phones and stuff like that.
What is the goal of the Cobb Theater when they're inviting individuals to come and see movies? What's their goal?
To provide a great guest service experience for all.
And so that announcement comes on. Is it just visual, or is it visual and audio as well?
It's visual and audio.
Okay. Meaning that you're seeing illustrations on the screen that clearly tell someone, turn off your phone, and there's also a voice telling someone, turn off your phone.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you have some sort of monitoring process that you all use to make sure that that theater experience is preserved for the paying customer?
Outside of, we would have hopefully our ushers doing proper theater checks, which they'd walk up and down the aisles, make sure everybody was, in their seats doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Is that what you have trained your ushers to do in looking for individuals that were not abiding by that particular rule at the Cobb Theater?
Yes, at the right timing, yes.
Okay. And what would happen if an usher were to see someone violating that rule by using their phone in the theater?
Depending on the timing of it, they would be asked to please refrain from using your phone.
And if that individual, for whatever reason, told that usher, I'm not going to do it, what instructions did you give your usher as to what they were to do under those circumstances?
They would notify a manager to ascertain the situation.
So they were trained to notify a manager to handle that situation from that point forward?
Correct.
Okay. And you would be a manager
Yes.
that they would come to? Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
And you had other managers that they would come to as well?
Yes.
Were you trained by Cobb Theater as to how to handle that situation once that happened, meaning an usher came to you and said, hey, there's some guy, I approached him, he doesn't want to turn his phone off. Were you trained by Cobb Theater on how to handle that matter?
Yes.
And so what would be the next step? You've been told now that a patron has refused to turn off their phone. What is the next step in processing in order to preserve the paying customer's experience?
We would go in there and again ask the guest, whether it be manager and the usher or just the manager, would go in there and ask the guest to please turn off their phone.
Okay, and what if the patron said, I'm not going to do it?
Again, depending on the timing of what was going on the screen, we would then ask the guest to please step outside and we would discuss it with them.
Okay, and what would happen if, in fact, the patron didn't want to do that?
Well, then we'd have to accelerate it upward to law enforcement.
Okay, and so if you were not able to accomplish what you were trained to accomplish in that circumstance, you would then contact law enforcement?
Correct.
Okay. How long is that announcement telling people to turn off their phones?
I would say 20, 30 seconds, somewhere around there.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where you were on January the 13th of 2014, just prior to this incident taking place.
Okay.
And let me ask you one more question about phones. Having the phone out and texting on that phone, is that still a violation of your policy?
Yeah, at certain times when the lighting's at a certain level, it would be, yes.
Meaning previews?
Yes, we would look at it.
Now, where were you immediately prior to this incident taking place?
I was at the guest service desk.
Okay, Matt? Your Honor, I'm going to be asking Mr. Peck if he could step down. Is that possible?
Judge, may I move, please?
Mr. Peck, if you could just stand here and not in front of any of the jurors, but maybe right here so that you can see the screen. I'm going to show you what's been entered into exhibit as exhibit number 1 into evidence as exhibit number 1, and I'm going to play a segment of that and tell me if you recognize what's being shown on this exhibit. Go ahead, man. Stop. Now, Mr. Peck, do you recognize the individual that is seated here?
Yes, that's myself.
That is you?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recognize this young lady here that is standing there talking to you?
Yes.
Okay, and tell me what was taking place at that time as you appear to be having a conversation. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what was that conversation about?
I believe it was about she was asking for movie posters.
This young lady was asking for movie posters?
Yes.
And what instructions were you giving her in an effort to accommodate her request?
To write down what movie posters she was interested in and phone number, contact information, stuff like that.
And you were going to try to get those posters for her?
We would try.
Okay. Go ahead, Matt. Okay, stop right there. Now, Mr. Peck, you recognize this individual here that approached your desk here and is situated in the video as you can see him?
Yes.
And do you know who that is?
Yes, that's Mr. Reeves.
Okay, and do you see Mr. Reeves here in court?
Yes, I do.
And would you please point out to Mr. Reeves as to what he is wearing?
He's seated right there, gray jacket, red tie, white shirt.
Okay. Now, go ahead, Matt. Stop. Now, did you notice anything while you were having this conversation with this young lady that caused you to be interrupted at all by Mr. Reeves?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay. Did it appear that he was waiting there patiently while you were finishing your conversation?
By viewing it, yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay, stop. Now, it appears that now you're having a conversation with Mr. Reeves. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. At any point during that conversation, did you get any feeling that he was angry, upset, mad, anything of that sort in the conversation you were having?
Not that I recall.
Go ahead, man. Okay, stop now. Now, during that entire conversation, did you have any exchange with Mr. Reeves where you believed again that Mr. Reeves was mad, frustrated, angry, or anything of that sort?
Not that I recall.
Did he appear to be polite in the conversation that you had with him?
I don't recall the conversation, but, I mean, looking at the appearance, yes, it appears fine.
If he had been mad, upset, or what have you, is that something you think you would remember?
I would think so.
Okay. And so it appears that he looked back at one point in time in the conversation. Is there a sign that says Theater 10 right behind where he was positioned?
Yeah, it would be up right outside the auditorium, so.
And it's right number 10,
Mhm.
that's right under the door
Yes.
as you go in? Okay. You may take your seat.
Mr. Oulson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Peck, shortly after that conversation that you were having with Mr. Reeves, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what takes place next.
Next thing I can recall was that somebody came around out of the theater and said he shot him, call 911.
Okay. And so you initially tried to call 911?
Yeah, I tried calling from the landline and was not successful at that time.
And what was wrong with the landline at that point in time that it was not successful?
It just kept ringing, and plus also I hung up as it kept ringing because I figured I need to be more mobile.
Okay, and so what did you do in an effort to be more mobile?
I took my cell phone and started walking towards the auditorium and called 911.
Okay. Did you in fact reach 911?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And after speaking to 911, did you stay there in the front lobby area or did you go into Theater 10?
I was moving towards Theater 10. Guests were coming out, and I was talking with guests as they were coming out, trying to keep them calm as I was making my way towards the theater.
Okay, and please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you were trying to do in order to keep these guests calm.
I'm just trying to tell them, relax, please calm down, just giving reassurances, just having some of my staff members help them, have them sit down, have them calm down if they can, as I headed towards
Why
auditorium.
were you doing that? Did it appear to you that they were emotional and frantic?
Objection leading.
Why is it that you were doing this?
There was just, it was a lot going on, a lot of commotion, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of people anxious and emotional about it, I would guess, yes.
Okay. And so, what are you doing physically in trying to calm that down?
Nothing physically except for just like whether it's, kind of guiding them to a chair or talking to them, instructing staff members to hand them a drink of water or something, whatever I could as I make my way towards the auditorium.
Okay. And so you made your way to the auditorium with your phone in your hand?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury exactly where you went once you made that turn.
I went into the auditorium 10, walking down the right-hand side of the hallway, and took a left around the, I guess it's the wall, and started walking up the stairs.
Okay. And what was your purpose in doing that?
To let 911 know what was going on at that time and to see what was going on as well.
Were you talking to 911 at the time?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And so you get up those stairs and tell me what you're doing once you reach the top of those stairs.
First, I noticed Mr. Oulson on the floor, unfortunately, and then I also noticed somebody, Mr. Reeves at the time, now I know who he is, sitting in a chair with somebody, I don't know if he was to his right as I'm facing him, maybe to his left, with the hand on his shoulder.
Okay. At that point in time, when you noticed Mr. Reeves in that back area, did you notice where his hands were?
I think at one point he was wiping his brow, and his one hand was down by his side, but he was wiping his brow, his face.
Okay. You don't know which hand that was?
No, I do not.
In your conversations with the operator, did you indicate to the operator that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, something to the effect that the assailant was still there?
Yeah, I said something like that. They said, because they were asking about the where the weapon was, and I said the weapon's been detained and the assailant is still there.
Okay. Did you get a response from that statement?
Something to the effect of "Don't call me that" or something on that line.
What about "I'm not the bad guy"?
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, I would say.
I object. It's 403. It's not a nuisance.
It's a statement. Now, Mr. Peck, following that conversation with 911, did you contact corporate?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how it was that you contacted corporate there from your building.
On my cell phone.
Okay, and did you advise corporate of what was taking place?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, obviously you were aware that there was a surveillance system that was in place, correct?
That's correct.
And did you, at that moment, go and view the surveillance system yourself?
No, I did not.
Do you know if corporate was actually utilizing the remote capabilities to view the surveillance system?
I heard they were, yes.
Well, did you not only hear that they were, did you see that they were?
I did not witness that, no.
Okay. So, let's talk about that. You now have a lot of police officers that are arriving at the Cobb Theater, correct?
Yes.
And there was quite a few, were there not?
Yes, there were.
And did you, at any point in time thereafter, as they were there in the Cobb Theater, did you go and meet with one of them and say, come with me to...
Objection, leading.
I will change that, Your Honor. Do you agree or disagree whether you went and summoned some police officer to go view the video?
I did not.
Okay. Why?
Just a lot going on that day. We were running around doing a lot of different things, talking to people on corporate phone, ascertaining the situation, going back and forth, helping guests, helping staff, keeping staff calm.
Well, but if you're going to view those surveillance films for something that is much less serious, right? Someone, stealing something from somewhere in the theater, or someone, violating some rule of bringing in their own popcorn or what have you, why not do it for this?
There wasn't the timing to do it at that time. I was too busy doing other things at the time, so I wasn't going to sit down and watch a video.
Would you agree or disagree with me that corporate did not want you to turn over those videos to law enforcement?
They didn't want me to be involved in it, no.
And do you agree with me or disagree that they made that clear?
I believe when I spoke to Jeremy Wellman, I believe that he said that let Seth Gordon deal with it and others deal with it.
Now, that day there at the Cobb Theater, that matinee period, how many employees were there at Cobb?
Being a Monday, probably, I would guess at this point, 12, 15, maybe.
12,
Tops.
15 employees.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, you became aware, did you not, that, agree with me or disagree, that Cobb Theater sent John Sillis over to that theater
Yes.
late that night
Yes.
in order to come and retrieve the hard drives from the surveillance system, correct?
That's correct.
And you agree with me or disagree that the instructions were that those hard drives...
Objection, hearsay.
Rephrase. Sustain.
Would you agree or disagree that Cobb Theater gave the instructions to fly those hard drives that
Objection,
very night?
hearsay.
Rephrase. Sustained.
Let me ask you a question. What did John Sillis do that night?
I wasn't there, but he came and removed the hard drives.
Objection beyond his scope of his knowledge. Just passing on hearsay.
He said I wasn't there.
Sustained.
Now, was Cobb opened the following day?
No, we weren't.
Was Cobb opened the day after?
I think we were. I think we reopened 2 days or 3 days later.
2 or 3 days later.
Correct.
And so, sometime thereafter, did you go on vacation?
Yes, in March.
In March. And did you come back from vacation?
Yes, I did.
When you came back from vacation, was the same surveillance system in place?
Same system, new DVRs.
New DVRs?
Correct.
New hard drives?
Yes.
Would you tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury where the hard drives that were in that surveillance system were the day following this incident?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. There's no predicate lays that he has any personal knowledge of that.
To the extent he knows, overruled.
Where were those hard drives?
From what Fred Myers told me, they were shipped to.
Hearsay.
Approach. Go ahead, Mr. Escobar.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you have some conversations with law enforcement that very afternoon?
Yes.
And do you have any recollection of those conversations?
No, I do not.
Are you telling this jury that if an officer had approached you to see those videos, what would you have done?
I would have taken them to see the videos.
You would have taken them to see the videos?
Yes.
Even though management didn't want you to do that?
Well, you asked me if they asked me to see the videos. If corporate give me directions not to see the videos, then I would not take them, obviously.
So you would have to go corporate?
I would call corporate and say, hey, so-and-so may want to see a video.
Do you know if any other employee or manager had a conversation with law enforcement there? That day, that afternoon?
My projectionist, I think, would have. Our IT person might have, Eric Andrew.
Objections is all speculation.
Well, let me ask you this question. If those conversations had taken place, is there a procedure in place for them to call corporate as well?
Yes.
Did any police officer interview you concerning the contact that you had with Mr. Reeves there at the front counter?
Not that I recall.
Had a police officer asked you those questions, would you have answered them as you've answered them today here in front of the jury?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Ross?
Yes, sir. May it please the court, counsel. Mr. Peck, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Peck, you would agree with me, would you not, that the phone rule is relaxed during previews
Yes.
and it's strictly enforced during the movie?
Our
correct?
focus is on the movie feature.
Okay. And you would agree with me that that rule is on a case-by-case basis,
That's correct.
correct? Now, as far as theater goes, Theater 10, there's only one way into that theater, correct?
Correct. Yes, one door.
All right.
Or two doors, but one way entrance, yes.
And is it fair to say that the goal of Cobb, or the goal of Cobb back then, was you wanted the patrons to have an Oscar moment?
Oscar-winning moments, yes, sir.
Okay. You indicated on that date, you saw yourself in the video, you were at the service desk,
That's correct.
correct?
Yes.
What were you doing at the service desk?
On a Monday, probably looking at our P&Ls, looking at different things on the computer, talking to guests as they come up, talking to different people as they approach.
Okay. You would agree with me, would you not, though? You weren't busy.
I mean, we weren't that busy, no, at that moment, no.
And in fact, during that time period, you were having trouble with the sink upstairs, were you not?
I believe so, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
And then a young lady, Miss Simpson, came in, correct?
Correct,
She was asking you for posters, right?
yes,
And we even see you grab a pad and a pen, and I think you indicated, okay, write them down, the ones that you're looking for, correct?
correct,
As you're doing so, you would agree with me that Mr. Reeves comes up,
yes,
right? And you would agree with me also that he never exhibited any type of urgency, correct?
yes,
He never said, excuse me, ma'am, but I need to talk to the general manager or the manager right away. I've got an urgent matter, right?
yes,
And in fact, when he spoke to you, he never used the F word, did he, Mr. Reeves?
not that I recall.
Okay, if he had, you would have remembered it, right?
I would think so, yes.
That's something you would definitely remember, correct?
I would think so, yes.
All right? I mean, it's not every day that there's a shooting in your movie theater, correct?
It's correct,
And in fact, you indicated to Mr. Escobar, you do not recall a lot of the events, correct?
correct,
You would agree with me, Mr. Peck, that you were sued personally as a result of this.
yes.
May I have a moment, Judge?
You may.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions, Mr. Peck.
Thank you. Redirect?
Mr. Peck, you agree or disagree that the announcement that comes on before the previews to turn your cell phones off and put them away apply to both the previews and the movie?
Yes,
And you would agree with me, would you not, agree or disagree, that you enforce that rule for previews and movies, correct?
yes, we try to.
You agree with me or disagree that you don't tell the patrons as they're coming in, hey, listen, phone use in the previews are okay.
That's correct.
So are you telling this jury then that it is okay?
Objection leading.
Do you agree or disagree?
Sustained.
Do you agree or disagree that based upon the rules that were in place on January the 13th of 2014, that the minute that announcement comes on, it was telling your patrons to turn off their phones?
Yes, I would agree, it's telling them to turn off the phones.
And your ushers monitor that period of time after the announcement is made to make sure that the theater experience is preserved, correct?
Yes,
So when you said on cross-examination that that announcement did not pertain, was not enforced during the previews, that was not correct.
no, what I said is we're a little more relaxed during the previews.
Well, did you tell your patrons when they first came into the theater that your rules are more relaxed during the previews?
No,
I have no further questions.
May this witness be released?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. You're free to go.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's take a 10-minute recess. Ladies and gentlemen, remember my instructions during the break, and you're going to head back to the jury pool room. Just be ready in 10 minutes. Thank you.
I'll ask for